It's been a funny old week. The last time that you saw us, our December top tips, it's the windiest day I've ever known to film on. However, this week things have been very different. We've seen temperatures well into the minuses, -3, -4, all week long. The result of that is that we couldn't do any planting. Now that the temperature has steadied itself a little bit, in today's video, I need to put out our broad beans. Down in the kitchen, Mrs. W is rustling up a Christmas favourite. Our broad beans are here, and you can see they've grown on actually really very well.
The roots are definitely ready to go out. Oh my goodness, look at those.
Do you remember when we planted these and I said to you, beans have a really long taproot? And there it is. Good example. So they're more than ready to go in. They're of a good size. These have actually been sown from our home saved seed from this year. And you can see the germination has been amazing. Ordinarily, I would have planted these in probably a week to 10 days ago. But as I say, because of the very frosty weather that we've had, cold weather, not only has the ground been hard, by day it thaws out, but to expose these young plants to that straight away would be grossly unfair to them, and it would probably knock them back a bit, and we might not get the early harvest that we anticipate for next year. I can see by the weather forecast that we're not due any really cold nights until next weekend. That's going to give those a good week to settle themselves down into place. These are about the right size that you want to put out into your plots. If you put them out, so if you sow the seed earlier than we did, i.e. at the beginning of October, but then the weather's unfavourable and you can't get them out into the ground, or you put them into the ground and it's all of a sudden very mild, they can be up here somewhere. And then when the winds come, they'll get knocked about. But also when the frosts do come and we get a really good one, the smaller plants, for whatever reason, seem more able to deal with those conditions than the taller ones. Because the stems do go very limp, and as they're tall, they'll bend over. That's what often snaps them, and then the plant dies. Whereas at this sort of size, no more than that, when the stems do freeze, if they slightly bend, there's not enough weight there to actually snap it. Now, I've digged my holes, as you can see. And when you're planting broad beans, fava beans, they want to be set 9 inches apart. That's 9 inches between the row. And if you're doing a double row, like we are, they can be 9 inches apart too. You'll probably see that mine are a bit more than that. That's because Mrs. W keeps leaving these carrots behind, and I haven't yet persuaded her to dig them all up.
Oh, they're alive.
So they're going to have to stay there. But if you do a double row, 9 inches apart, and then you want another double row, you will need to leave a good 18 inches between those double rows. And that's to enable you to be able to get between the rows and pick them. Now when you do come to plant, you see this has got rather a deep taproot. It's not going to do any harm just to put that like that. Pop it into the ground. So yeah, they don't want to be any larger than that really if you can help it.
What's that, about 5 inches tall, something like that, isn't it?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
You can already see the wind is affecting that now. But I'm going to bury this slightly deeper anyway, so hopefully that'll mitigate the fact that it is just a little bit larger than I would actually want. There we are. That is ideal. Now I've got about 20 of these to plant out. So while I'm doing this, let's go take a look and see what Mrs. W's rustling up in the No Dig Norfolk Gardener's kitchen.
Hello and welcome back to the No Dig Norfolk Gardener's kitchen. Now it's getting to that time of year where we're starting to think of Christmas, and I like to make a Christmas jam. And the jam varies from year to year as to which fruit I put into it. It depends what I have in the freezer. And this year I'm using some strawberries and some raspberries. But you can do this jam with any variation of fruit really. I tend to use what I have in the freezer at the time. It's a good time to be making this because by taking these fruit from the freezer, I'm making a little bit more space for the rest of the festive food that I will be making later. So for the Christmas jam 2024, I am using some strawberries and some raspberries. There's about a kilo of fruit. Whichever fruit you choose, you will need about a kilo. I've got 250 grams of soft figs. I'm going to chop them up quite fine. The zest and juice of an orange and the zest and juice of a lemon. 2 apples. These are actually some of our windfalls, and they're quite small, so this will be the equivalent of 2 apples, peeled, cored and finely chopped. A kilo of jam sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, ground ginger and ground cloves. So while I'm prepping the fruit, I'm going to pop the jars into the oven at 100 degrees Celsius so that they can be sterilising while I'm cooking. And I'm also going to just pop a little tea plate into the freezer to be cooling so we can do the set test later. Having prepped all the fruit, I've added the raspberries and strawberries into the large saucepan, or in my case it's a preserving pan.
God, it smells so sweet, doesn't it?
It does, I know. I think
I can smell the sugars coming off them.
Yes, yeah. So I'm just going to turn that on. So to the raspberries and strawberries, I'm adding the 250 grams of chopped soft figs. The chopped apple, 2 chopped apples. And the juice and zest of 2 oranges. So we'll give that a gentle stir round, and then we're going to aim to bring this up to a simmer and simmer for 5 to 6 minutes. I'm just giving this a little mash with a potato masher just to break up those strawberries because some of them were a bit large and still whole. It's already smelling very Christmassy in the No Dig Norfolk Gardener's kitchen. And it's going to smell even more Christmassy now because I'm now going to add the spices. So this is the ground ginger, the ground cloves and the ground cinnamon. A teaspoon of each.
Oh,
Wow.
I can smell that.
That is definitely Christmas. Give that a really good stir through.
That fruit bread that I make you, Mrs. W, this is going to be lovely on it,
Oh,
isn't
it would, yes, it will be. Lovely. And I don't know whether I said this at the beginning of the video or not, but I'm also going to put in a good grating of freshly grated nutmeg. And last but not least, the kilo of jam sugar. And jam sugar is simply granulated sugar with added pectin to help with the set. So while the sugar is dissolving, keep stirring it. You don't want that to catch on the bottom. You can usually tell when the granules have dissolved because they no longer cling to the side of the pan as a granule, they're more of a liquid, a syrup. The sugar is now dissolved and I'm going to turn the heat up, and we need to bring this now to a rolling boil, and a rolling boil is a boil that cannot be stirred down. So turn the temperature up. This has now come to a rolling boil, and as you see, if I stir it, it is continuing to boil away. So that is where we're aiming for. And we now need to continue this boil for 7 to 10 minutes. We'll try it after 7, see how the set's going. We've had 7 minutes of the rolling boil. I've just taken the plate out of the freezer, and I have been using a splash guard, as you can see, because it's quite a lively jam. All I'm going to do is just take a small amount of the jam and put it on the cold plate. And just leave that for 30 seconds to a minute.
That's jam, Mrs. W, and it smells Christmassy.
Oh, I know it does. It smells quite like mulled wine, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What we're looking for is if you can draw your finger through the jam and it doesn't roll back in on itself, it's nearly there. If you like a soft set, that would probably be fine, but I like a slightly firmer jam. I'm going to leave it another couple of minutes. Cold plate test again. That's been back in the freezer for the extra couple of minutes of the rolling boil for the jam. As before, just a little bit from the pan. Just leave that for a couple of minutes. I think you can sort of see it. It's definitely thicker than it was. And let's have a little look this time. If I pull my finger through, you can definitely see it now. That is the consistency I'm looking for. It's not running back into itself. It's crinkling as you push it. So the jam is now ready to decant into the jars. So I have a selection of jars here of different sizes. Not quite sure how many jars I'm going to get out of this, so let's have a little look. I've got my jam funnel, which is fantastic for this job. Give the jam a good stir around so you're getting the fruit evenly into the jars. Remember, these jars have been in the oven, sterilising. You can see all the little fig seeds in there. That's lovely, doesn't it? I love figs. The jam is all now decanted into the jars, and from that quantity we have 7 nice sized jars of jam. One slightly smaller, one not quite up to the top, but that will be the one we have for home. And we now need to just put the lids on I'm just going to tighten these up. And as these now start to cool, you will gradually hear the lids pop when the vacuum forms inside. The lids are now firmly on, and as you can see, you can still depress the top in. You will hear these click, and once they click, they are sealed, ready for storage. They will keep for a good year unopened. Once you open them, you need to use them within sort of 3 to 4 weeks or whatever, but yes. So we're just going to leave these to cool, right cold. The jam has cooled overnight, and as you can see, all of the lids are now totally depressed in, so the vacuum has been successful for storage. So what I'm going to do now is to pretty them up a little bit for Christmas, ready to give as possible gifts or just to put on the Christmas table and look nice and festive. So what I've got here are some circles that I've just roughly cut out. If you've got some pinking shears, that's some quite serious ones. They'll make a nice little crinkly edge. But I usually look for little festive pieces of fabric and keep them stored away during the year, ready for Christmas. So I've just used the little dish as a template. That's approximately 6 to 7 inches in diameter. You can be as creative as you wish. This is quite a simple one that I've done here with the very simple label, handwritten label. I found these the other day, which I thought were quite nice. They are actually a gift tag, but I've written on the back of them, the Strawberry Jam 2024. Just taped my label on, and with my circle, try and get it sort of evenly over the top. And for this, I'm going to use this elastic red festive string. Wrap it round a couple of times. Let's tie a knot. Can adjust it slightly if it's got a bit uneven. There we have it, 7 lovely festive jars of jam.
Thank you, Mrs. W. I do like the old Christmas jam. All those lovely spices. Just makes it a bit different from the jam you make the rest of the year. Of course, the rest of the family rather loves it. And it goes great with any Christmas recipes like cakes and things that, ooh, they have that lovely Christmassy taste. Now, while you've been watching Mrs. W, I have finished planting these broad beans. You can see I've put some hoops over them. I'm actually going to put some Enviromesh over the top. This is not for pigeon protection on this occasion. It is actually just to keep the worst of the weather away from them. I've found over the last few seasons we've been really successful in bringing these broad beans on earlier by just covering them at this stage. They don't need to be large hoops, as you can see. By the time these plants are finished growing, when we get to next May, they'll be up here. But for now, they're not going to get any bigger than that until we want to actually take these covers off, which will be sometime toward the end of February, when we know that really the worst of our winter weather, hopefully, usually, should have gone. Now, these are a variety called Aquadulce, and they are probably one of the best broad bean varieties, certainly here in the UK, to overwinter. They are particularly hardy. There is also a variety called the Sutton. We've grown that before. And if you have small spaces to grow in, maybe grow them in tubs. That's a great variety to actually try, and you'll still get nice broad beans.
They don't grow as tall as the aquadults, do they?
No, they're very dwarf. They only get about this high, don't they, really?
Yeah.
And we have grown them several times over the years, haven't we?
Yes, we have, yeah.
But I remember one particular year they did get wiped out by the weather, didn't they?
Yes, unfortunately.
Whereas these, touch wood, we've never really lost an entire crop with these, have we?
No.
I remember putting a video out, must have been, was it last year? When the beans were over there, or was it the year before? I can't remember now, but I actually lifted the cover up and the cover had actually frozen to the ground, hadn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And these broad beans looked, well, in an awful way, but they came through and gave us a wonderful harvest. Now, of course, it's December and it's not very much longer before Christmas arrives. And you saw a wonderful jam that Mrs. W made earlier in the video. And we've got one or two other things that will be going out there over the next couple of weeks in the run up to Christmas that might give you some great ideas. Not least the jam that you've just seen. Really great for giving away to your friends as presents. Doesn't cost you an awful lot of money, and it shows you think of them because you've actually put the effort into making that wonderful jam. So if you're not subscribed to our channel and you want to get a few more ideas of the things you can be doing with your vegetables over the Christmas period, then do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. I know I've had one or two comments over the last couple of videos where some of you already got your broad beans in. Some of you may be about to put them in. Do let us know in the comments how you grow your broad beans. Do you try and overwinter them, or do you actually wait until next year, plant them and just get a slightly later harvest? And also, if you're making preserves at this time of the year, then do let us know. We would love to hear what you are actually making at this amazing time of the year. Have a great gardening week, won't you all? And we shall see you on the next one.